All right,
Chris?
welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to, oh my goodness, Khaled, CSA Revolution Series Season 2, Episode 2. Is that possible?
Yes, sir. And it's just the beginning of 2021.
We've only just begun, right? Not to quote that song, but welcome everyone. My name is Chris, Marketing Director with Compliance Group. Let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover today. And I know you don't want to listen to me, listen to Khaled. You are here for Karen and Cisco. So let's go ahead and get started. A sincere thank you to our friends and partners at Connects for providing us with this platform to present this historic webinar to you today. Historic, you say? For the first time ever, we have the CDER and the CDRH from the FDA joining us. Karen and Cisco, welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our, yep, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists real quick. Obviously, you want to hear directly from the FDA, so let's go ahead and get started. Also, there is we've got a couple live polls that we want to make sure you're interacting with us so that we can lead the discussion based on, you know, where you're at in your specific area, your specific department within your specific company. So please interact with us as we go along, because that'll really help to enlighten us and have a very lively discussion with our panelists today. Okay, so here's a quick overview of today's guests. First off, Karen Takahashi is the Senior Policy Advisor within the Office of Policy for Pharmaceutical Quality at the FDA, also known as the CDER. She is a co-author of the Guidance for Industry Data Integrity and Compliance with Drugs CGMP. Prior to 2015, she spent 15 years as a Senior Policy Advisor and Compliance Officer in CDER's Office of Manufacturing and Product Quality. Karen, welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you.
Excellent. Next up, some of you probably already know him, Mr. Francisco Vicente, the Program Manager Case for Quality CDRH within the Office of Compliance at the FDA. He is focused on improving access and patient outcomes by engaging industry, payers, providers, and patients to increase focus on the quality and performance of medical devices. Cisco, welcome to today's webinar.
Thanks, Chris.
And I may add, he is also a member of the FICSA team, which we'll introduce a little later.
Yep, absolutely. Next up in the industry, we have Mr. Ken Shitamoto, Senior Director in IT at Gilead Sciences. He leads the IT quality engineering function at Gilead, which performs software quality assurance, which is also known as testing, validation, and infrastructure qualification. He has performed over 100 GXP computer systems compliance audits globally. Ken, welcome to today's webinar.
Morning, boss.
And also he's a member from the FICSA team, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yep. We also have Mr. Stephen Cook, VP of Quality and Computer Compliance at Compliance Group. He's held numerous roles in IT, manufacturing, and quality, and is an alum of Baxter International. He has also implemented CSA at numerous clients, including the development, deployment, and training of end-to-end CSA SOPs. That's not enough acronyms for you, and associated templates. Stephen, welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you.
And he's one of a kind.
And last but not least, our moderator for today's invigorating discussion around data integrity and CSA applications, Mr. Khaled Masali, Executive Vice President for Clients and Regulatory Relations at Compliance Group. He is a key participant of the MDIC Case for Quality Initiatives and a member of the FICSA FDA-Industry CSA team, and also is a contributor to the FDA draft guidance of computer software assurance within manufacturing, operations, and quality systems software. Okay, Khaled, without further ado, they want to hear from our folks at the FDA. The floor is now yours.
I promise to get them there. Promise. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. All right. So what are we up to today? What we're going to be talking about? So just reading a lot. There was one question on the registration. What would you like to learn from today? Although the title is Data Integrity and CSA, but I guess CSA is the winner. So there's a lot of, a lot of folks are asking about CSA, and they're here to learn about CSA. Well, the good news, you're going to hear about both. In the slide deck, you're not going to see a lot of stuff about CSA, but you can ask any questions you want. You've got the experts from the industry, from the FDA, and I call out myself and Stephen from Compliance Group as industry practitioner because we both have 25 plus years of experience in corporate, pharma, biotech, and medical device. So we can provide you all the answer, hopefully, that we can. So we'll be talking about software, computer software assurance, and also introducing the FICSA team, because again, if computer software assurance is successful, is because of that FICSA team. And we'll get to that, who these folks are. And then we'll be talking about alignment with GAMP 5. Myself and Ken will talk about it, how we joined them, etc. And we'll talk about the CSA appendix that you really, really need to know about and what's in it. And then really we're gonna get to the meat, which is really the data integrity challenges, right? And that's why Karen, and thank you, Karen, for being here, to kind of support us and give us her guidance. Again, she's a co-author of the data integrity guidance, and she knows a lot about the history of it. So hopefully she can support us and jump to, to give us her guidance right on the fly. No pressure, Karen. Now, really, from a takeaway perspective, again, I'm not going to read through all this, but this is really what we're going to give you updates on the CSA draft, how to apply CSA, data integrity requirement, how should it be treated, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through everything because, again, I want to give time for my presenters. So what we're going to start out with, just the CSA polls, okay? Many of you have heard about CSA. Many of you are experiencing issues implementing CSA or have doubt about implementing CSA. So really just one of these questions here that I'd like you to answer. And Jonathan is gonna push it out to you. So really the idea is, when will you start implementing CSA? So these are the 4 answers. Please pick your answer, and then it should show on your screen.
We'll give folks a couple seconds to enter in their answers, and then we'll go ahead and display the results, Khaled.
Perfect.
And no cheating, everyone. You're only allowed to pick one. This is not a multiple choice exam.
No peeky.
All right, Jonathan, do we have enough data to display the results?
Like we do. Let me go ahead and put those up for you.
This is good.
All right. For some reason, I'm not seeing the number.
So leading the pack, Khaled, is unsure at 47%. 26% say yes this year. And then in third place is immediately in regards to implementing CSA.
And how many in no plans?
7%.
That's
Okay.
good though. It means roughly half, a little under half, are ready to adopt CSA.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. This is great news. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like Cisco to actually just give his 2 cents here.
So going back, and I'm sorry I had to unmute there. So I think the numbers are encouraging, because I think one of the things we've been trying to really highlight and really move the needle on is the idea that you can do this, you can start, get ready to roll. It's nothing that you have to wait for, right? Nothing here is out of scope of other activities or guidances that we've issued beforehand. And what we're planning on doing, and what we've talked about multiple times, is just providing more clarity, because it seems that's something people have asked about.
No, just to add on to that, I actually think most people are already implementing principles, they're just not aware of it. What CSA does is kind of consolidates and puts a wrapper around it with critical thinking, but a lot of the concepts are already out there. It's here, so even those, unsure, if you're unsure, you're probably already started.
I like it. Awesome. All right. Jonathan, please get ready for the next one. And it's really targeting those folks. If unsure or no plans, what is preventing you from adopting? So please, for those small percentage, if you can provide answers.
Again, we'll give folks a couple seconds to enter in their answers. Again, you're only allowed to choose one. This isn't a multiple choice exam. And we definitely appreciate your participation, as again, this will really lead us into a more efficient and effective discussion based on what we hear from you. Because again, this webinar is about you. And I know you want to hear from the FDA, but we really want to understand where do you currently sit in regards to CSA? Give folks another second or two, Jonathan, and then we'll pull up the results here and see what we get.
All right, looks like they're slowing down, so let's take a look.
Excellent. So real quick, Cal, if you can't see it, need help implementing is 40%, the top choice. The second choice was waiting for others. And then the third choice is resistance from management.
Interesting. I guess the question here, do you think, is it management or QA, right?
No, actually QA is lower than management.
That's great. Then we definitely need champions, right? And hopefully giving you more information on here today, it will help management to really provide, some guidance and push forward. This is great. All right, any comments from anyone?
So I think actually from my standpoint, that was a bit shocking, and it's I don't know if it's necessarily a negative or a positive, right? The feedback we've always gotten up until now, it's always been that pushback from QA. To see that going down is hugely, I think, beneficial. It's a big improvement. If we're talking about the management piece, I'm wondering now, is it investment? Is it cost? What exactly is the management pushback?
I think if management really realize the savings, that probably will change their mind, right? So maybe that's a topic for next time.
Another discussion down the road, for more research down the road.
Or management hasn't realized the cost.
Yeah. And again, companies implemented CSA from 2017 to 220, right? We're not talking 220. So we've been working on this since 2017. I know Gilead started really early in the game, right? So we've got folks, this is just maybe close to 10 companies that have implemented it. There's a lot more, right? Over 60, and we're talking about globally. We personally, as a compliance group, help over 15 plus, but again, sometimes it's hard to bring it as a consultant, and really, yes, our objective is to get business from everyone. However, my main objective out of this, and I've always said it to Cisco and Ken, us being part of the FICSA team, it is really important for us to push this because it just makes sense, right? So I just want you to take this picture and really think about it. We're talking about global implementation. CSA is around the globe. It's not just in the US. All right. Any comments from anyone before moving on?
CSA is not a one-size-fits-all concept. You can adopt key principles. You can move it forward. I know people talk about savings, but it's not really about savings. It's about eliminating the overhead of managing reams and reams of papers, of screenshots that are easily falsified, that really don't add that additional value, and then reallocating that effort so you can actually test the systems more and increase the quality, right? It is not the stack of binders that is good for product quality, patient safety, data integrity. It is actually the system functioning properly. So we're trying to change that in this process. So, and everyone that signs up a little bit at a time, even, you will see the changes.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Ken. Every CSA solution that we have implemented has been slightly different because every organization has its own risk culture, right? So some take it to a very lean practice and some take it to adopting the risk approach, but it looks more like CSV. So it is not a one size fits all.
I think that's the best way to capture it, right? It's really tailored towards the organization, their capabilities, where their comfort level is. And I think to your point, Ken, the reason we've been so engaged and involved in this effort, it makes sense from a safety, patient quality standpoint, right? The idea of how do we make the capability and technology easier and faster to adapt and adopt, that's really what we're in this for too. It should be straightforward. I think the big bonus that a lot of the companies who've engaged or tried it out or who've made the recognition, right, that said, yeah, I really can do this right now and really have started their journey on their own, there's a value proposition that goes along with that. And there's nothing that says that these need to be mutually exclusive.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what Kyle always says is my favorite slide, 5 things you need to know about CSA. First one, it's a new measuring stick for risk. It's measuring risk against impact to patient safety, product quality, and data integrity. So we've been doing FMEA risk assessment for years, and invariably they're always something about, we miss a regulatory requirement, we get a warning letter of 483, right? So this actually puts the patient at the center of that risk. And no matter where you are in the world, find a regulator that tells you you're using the wrong measuring stick when you're putting patient safety first. Number 2, it actually calls for the least burdensome documentation approach. It's not about generating volumes of documents and saying, well, we need to have it in case of an audit. 3, it reduces paperwork by 80% with unscripted and ad hoc testing. So let me be perfectly clear, I say this every time, unscripted does not mean undocumented. Unscripted test cases get a test case number, they get a run number, they minimally get post-approved, they get put into a traceability matrix to your requirements, but you're using it for roughly 80% of your requirements that are low or medium risk, and you're saving your heavy-duty testing, your really robust scripted testing for the requirements that have the potential to compromise product quality or impact patient safety. Number 4, because you're actually testing more, when you unhandcuff your testers and you let them actually get in there, engage and play with the system, they're better at finding the issues. So not only are you creating less deviations because of documentation or tester errors, but you're actually finding more issues and you're releasing systems to production that work better. And lastly, it is supported by both FDA and ISPE GAMP. And we're going to talk a little bit more about GAMP's publication on this.
Now I saw smiles and head nodding from both Karen and Cisco. Would you like to comment? Just asking.
Patient safety is always at the front, yes.
And I think that,
yeah, one of the things we hear, guys, all the time is how will other regulators around the world see this, right? If this is just FDA, how's the European Union, how's the Japanese Ministry of Health, how are they going to see CSA?
So, and I want to highlight and go back to even, as Karen said, patient safety is what we're all here for, right? That's even the companies who are employing and applying these things, right? It's really the end outcome and goal. Put that first, and there is no regulator in the world that is going to have a concern with that. I think the point you made, Steve, and honestly, it's great that people are excited enough about this as a new approach, but it's really not a new approach. It's always been the intent. It's a question of how have things drifted in time and, just the way the interaction and the whole regulatory system and industry work. It's a matter of every once in a while, I think periodically, we collectively have to look at things and if they're working and reset if they're not working as originally intended. And that's really what we were trying to do here. But, we've seen it. I think we've had even participants who adopted the approach and used this in audits that have come from international bodies and actually got rave reviews for their methodology, because it's not about the system, it's not about the documentation, it's about what is your focus, and you can articulate much better. Here's where the risk is, here's where we're considering this, and when you do that, and that's really what gives us as a regulator any comfort level. Okay, you know what you're talking about. Doesn't mean everything's perfect, but you know where that is. That's really what we want to be. We don't want to be in the point where we have to go in there and tell you that's not the way you should be doing and the system's wrong. That's where we start to get nervous.
Great. Thank you. All right. So I guess what we're looking at is the FICSA team. FICSA stands for FDA-Industry CSA team, and the designer behind the logo is sitting right here, Mr. Ken Shitamoto. This is our logo. It's CSA, again, it's focusing on that. This is a team of folks from around the globe, not just the US, that have been involved in recommendation for CSA since 2015, 2016. And we've been talking about it. Many of these folks have implemented it one way or another. Remember what Ken just said, there's no one size fits all. Yes, we are a team, but everyone has different threshold. Yes, I will apply it to this, I will not apply it to that, etc. So there are the different ways of applying computer software assurance. Join us on LinkedIn. There will be a lot of additional information coming up soon, and hopefully Cisco will give some update on the latest for the guidance. So remember, this entire team from the various companies, pharma, biotech, and medical device, have provided recommendations that went into that computer software assurance, the draft guidance that's still yet to be released, and therefore it's here. Mr. Vicente, can you please give us a latest update on this?
Yeah, and I know that it's been a long time coming, and I do always feel like I need to apologize for that, but it is our
you don't
process,
need to.
and things do happen, right? I don't think anybody anticipated the current COVID crisis, and I don't think anybody's going to complain either about where all those resources who are working on policies and EUAs really went, and that's really where they should have been. So this was in our plan to be A-listed in 2020. Priorities shifted simply because of the pandemic, but it's still something that I think we are very committed to. On our end, it is, transitioned into the 21 list. It's still moving. There is priority and emphasis on it, especially in light of a lot of the other efforts that CDRH is undergoing, but even broader efforts that the whole agency is undergoing. I know that, whether it is CDRH, CDER, CIFSAN, CBER, any of our other sister agencies, they're all working towards advancing manufacturing now and advanced manufacturing technologies. This work has been something that's geared to be a foundation for some of that as we move forward. So, it's all I can say right now. It's in review stages. It's how it is. It's the process that we've got to follow, but there is energy and commitment behind it.
And there's help, right? And I'm going to let actually Ken speak to this, since he's my partner in crimes in joining the ISPE GAMP and also supporting them. Well, they actually really started it together. Hey, we've been talking about this for years. What's wrong with you, industry? How come you have not been implementing the risk-based approach we told you? Now, because the FICSA team says this is the way it is, you think this is the right thing to do? No. We support it. We've been talking about it. And I'm so glad they actually approached us and they issued a white paper, but they didn't stop there. They went on and updated the GPG for data integrity by design and asked us to include a CSA appendix. So this is a little bit back in the history. Ken, if you can just elaborate a little bit more about your thoughts, how it all started, and what you think where we're going.
Sure. So as Khaled pointed out, right, ISP GAMP approached us. We had a bunch of conversations on how to collaborate. In essence, if you look at GAMP, it really is about risk-based testing, right? And if you look at CSA, it starts looking at risk-based documentation that's layered on top of them. So it's a synergistic approach, as Stephen was pointing out. Rather than spending your time taking a whole stack of screenshots for things that are of lower requirements or lower risk, that you refocus that effort and you prioritize properly. Now, one thing I want to add about the appendix is great. It goes into great detail to the earlier point on globalization, right? So the FICSA team has collaborated with EU industry groups such as A3P on activities we have presented. Right now, we're looking to present in APAC, and we are in talks with an individual to start presenting and bringing the concepts front and center in Japan as well. There are lots of conversations going out to the others, but I want to throw it out there again that this is nothing new. It is all within, right? It's all within current regulation. I remember when I heard Cisco say that for the first time. When we first met, it always stuck in my head. And this will help you move forward. What's great about this good practice guide, it has a case study that's done 2 different ways. Right, it's one of those moments where you kind of see that there's no one-size-fit-all approach to taking on a solution. It is about, and the people who are unsure, right? Gilead is not 100% CSA on all areas. I have multiple quality assurance units. I have ones that are moving forward, very progressively. I have ones that are moving cautiously, and others that are kind of watching and slowly. But it is about taking those steps and creating and moving forward. So this guide will help you. There's going to be future documents coming as well. Right? We're in conversations where we have this, like we talked about, hey, this is a data integrity by design area, but there are more areas that we can align, and it really is intrinsic. If you look at data integrity, right, it's underlying, there is a computer system. The computer system plays a key role in there in ensuring that your system, it actually does what it's supposed to do in a fashion, right? That in patient safety, product quality, data integrity, that trinity. You want to do that the most efficient way possible to minimize your risk of there actually being an issue in those areas. It's not about, again, creating stacks and stacks and reams of paper. So.
And I think Ken just mentioned data integrity multiple times. Does that mean you're asking Karen to say something to us?
Well, yes, absolutely. I guess maybe I can just make a plug for the regulations as a regulator. When you say data integrity, I'm thinking, sometimes I feel that when people talk about data integrity problem or issue, like it's kind of confusing because you're not really saying like we're not sure if the data is complete or we're not sure if the access is controlled. And so I think sometimes that can be perhaps using more sort of distinct terms can be help us all understand a little bit better, what the real problems are. But yeah.
That's awesome. We're gonna need to hear from you, Karen, a bit more when we start asking that question here about many folks still ask the question today. Can we apply the computer software assurance to data integrity? So I think Cisco's gonna give us a little bit, which really I highlighted here, how we should treat it, but I want Cisco to mention it, and please see if you can back him up and say, no, Cisco, I don't think you're right. But,
so let me
you know what I mean.
Yeah, let me take a shift on that one, because I think Karen started off on something there that I think is foundational to even the discussion on the technology, right? And I'd like for her to espouse on that, right? I think we get hung up a lot on all the nuances of all the technology and lump it all as data integrity. But I think, Karen, you were talking about it just now. What is it really that's the whole point and purpose of data integrity? What's the whole overall construct and concept?
It's controlling the data. It's making sure it's complete, accurate, it's documented at the time of performance. It kind of pulls in that whole, it's making sure that you understand like that your data is what you expect it to be, right? Or it's what's the accurate picture of what happened. Reconstructing, being able to reconstruct all of your activities. So it's kind of being able to almost defend your data, right? So you know that if it's controlled and it's complete, then you know that that you can like have confidence in it. So I mean, I think that regulators want that, but I think that companies also want to make sure that they know that their data is secure and defendable.
I love that you hit on that, because I think that's the whole point we've tried. The whole purpose of this is whether we talk about data integrity and what's going on there, it's not for the regulator, it's really for the company. We are the piece that is checking the additional, just giving that extra quality check or point along the way to make sure things are being done and established. But honestly, going back to the same principles ahead of time, if we've got to take the action, we're too far downstream. There's already people who are impacted, there's patients who are hurt. As a company, this is a value to you. That's why it's important to sustain it. That's why we emphasize it so much across the board. When we talk about data integrity, it's that broad spectrum, and people seem to always lump that into what the technology component is contributing to it. And when we talk about CSA, data integrity is, your broad philosophical idea, right? It's really what you're looking to achieve. CSA applies to the technology that's being used to help you get there, right? How are you establishing control? How are you establishing the accuracy of that portion of that chain of information that you're looking at? So CSA does apply to the actual pieces of the technology being utilized along the way. That's the whole intent. We'd love for you to be using more of that technology, because it does give you a better, more connected, oftentimes a lot more controlled, least burdensome chain for that information. The question is, let's not confound the the things, right?
Thank you. That's great. That's great. Ken, anything you want to add to this from an industry perspective?
I mean, it goes about to what they're just to bolt on to that. It's all about requirements. It's really understanding your system in context. It's not just CSA in isolation. That gets you nothing. It's really about that whole view. CSA in itself, one of the key cornerstone is the application of critical thinking. One of the things that I learned from GAMP that I always found interesting when we're working together is they didn't like the fact that the tables in M3 ended up with people shutting off their brains and just mapping to this table. The table told me to do it, so that's what I've got to do. And if you look, we spent a lot of time talking about that. And this is really about applying critical thinking, not because some document, coming up with approach, being able to defend your approach. And if you look at industry as a whole, we've got companies that are compliant that say, hey, I'm going to risk assess this entire validation effort away. It's a good vendor. I'm going to leverage their reputation. I'm just going to do a very light effort, or I'm just going to sign up, versus someone who's going to generate volumes and volumes. Both are compliant. Right? At the end of the day, the question is, Ken, does that system actually work? Right? So you're really looking at is what is in your best interest. CSA refocuses back to that, back to those principles. Testing, if you really look at the core of testing, it is to remove defects. It's not to collect a bunch of screenshots or to prove that something works. To prove that something works, you only need one counterexample, one defect to say like, hey, it didn't work there, right? So when you look at it, it's really about testing the way that testing is done everywhere, the removal of defects. How do you do that efficiently? You test more, right? And you adopt more modern approaches, such as automation, which is enabled through CSA principles.
Great, thank you. All right, we're on out to second poll from data integrity. So Karen, it's coming to you soon. So here are the questions and some of the answers. Would love to see. Data integrity, what are your areas of biggest concerns?
Again, everyone, we highly appreciate your answering this poll question for us. Again, Jonathan, we'll give them the results here in a few seconds, but you can either answer with DI requirements, DI controls, DI supporting processes, or the organization. Again, what is your biggest area of concern with data integrity? We'll give folks another second or two to enter in their answer, and we'll display the results.
And since I don't have my glasses,
Jonathan,
Chris,
we have enough data to support our hypothesis, or what's true, or
We're over 70% response, so let's take a look.
Wow, fantastic. Let's see what we get.
Awesome.
So answer number one, Khaled, is DI controls. Coming in second is supporting processes. Coming in third is requirements. And then coming in fourth is the organization.
All right, let the expert analyze here. So we'll start with Karen. Any recommendation, advice?
Yeah, no, I think that's great that, I mean, not great that people think they need more controls, but great that they understand they do need more controls. I mean, I think that it's really, I mean, it's not just that you're controlling what you think you have, right? It's controlling what you don't know as well, right? So you want to make sure you can, you know, verify the data you have, but you also want to make sure that you verify that nothing else happened that you didn't want to happen. So I think that's really great that we're in that space. Fiscal, do you have anything?
Yeah, thanks. I actually am interested in that because I always wonder when people are talking about controls, what do they mean? And I mean, I'd maybe ask some of the people from the industry side who've been working with the customers, you know, what are they thinking about when they talk about controls?
Ken? Stephen?
You know, I'm assuming they're talking about technical controls.
Okay.
Right. That's what I'm guessing here from that interpretation. Actually, I think the controls is skewed. Also, I think it's skewed because this is a conversation on CSA and data integrity, which implies that the people are more validation or computer oriented, so their interest is gonna always be in that area of control, just
in
by
the technology application to it.
Yeah, so I think that's a skew, but the controls actually feed in from the requirements, because the requirements that drives everything.
They're
Right?
linked, and if you looked at that split, what stood out to me is plus or minus, it was pretty even. It was roughly a quarter of each person responded their area of concern. If I look at controls, I think about the controls in terms of the requirement it's intended to control. Just like you said, Ken, they're related. And so I think it's part of the discussion we're going to get into in terms of when is data.
And I think to that piece, and I go back again, always to what Karen had originated there. You know, what is really important is that at least that trusted and confident flow of information, right? The controls, if that's really the focus right now, is how does the technology help enable that? Okay, then we can piece all that portion out. And the focus should be, to Ken's point, in the critical thinking around what is this technology going to help me achieve in that state of control? What's the risk if that's not controlled? Then we talk about how CSA helps enable some speed, some efficiency, some better focus and processes around that portion.
Great, thank you. You know, I always like to say my statement around data integrity. Every time I think of data integrity, I think of really good documentation practices, right? Just as you work with technology, you just have to mind shift, right? How did you control it back in the days, right? Just try to do the same thing. Don't overdo it. Don't overkill it, right? Otherwise, you will never be able to automate. So, and I think, Cam and I spoke to you, I think yesterday or Friday, when we talked about, yes, to me, it's really the good documentation practices, but for some reason, when we implement it into automation, we have issues. All right, next poll is, do you understand the data lifecycle of GXP data and the relationship to computerized systems? All right, Chris, it's all yours. And John. Again, we do appreciate the time you take into complete this information. It's not just helpful for us, but I think it's helpful to everyone on the call. Jonathan, and where are we at?
All right, over 70% participation again, so let's take a look.
This is nice. All right. Chris, you need to read this since I can't see it.
This is good. 62% do understand. 6% don't. 30% need more help. Only 2% say not my role.
So, Stephen, what's your opinion about this? What would you recommend here?
Not sure I understand your question, Khaled.
Well, I mean,
So if you think about the data lifecycle in terms of GXP systems, really, it's the creation to the destruction of that data point, right? And everything that happens in between and accounting for it through the records retention lifecycle. And that aligns itself well with from CSA on through periodic review and retirement.
I think for those people in the 30% that need help, there are a lot of references out there, right? There are, recently the one that we added, the CSA, data integrity by design. There's the other earlier one, I think it's records and data integrity. There's a PICS document, there's an MHRA document, there's Karen's. There's a lot of information for that 30% to get started. And if you need help within that context or in structure, there are organizations such as Khaled and Stephen that can come out and help and do those things as well. So I think for that 30, I was very happy to see 62%. And then for that 30%, there are pathways forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome.
And for that 30%, I kind of feel like for those of us who've been around a number of years, when we started adopting Part 11 in 2001, it was a lot of those conversations about, do I have to save all my drafts? When does Part 11 apply, right? And I think that's where most of industry or a lot of industry understands data integrity today, but there's still those organizations struggling with when does data integrity apply? When does something get created? What do I have to do with it?
Yeah, if I could just jump in too, that when you're talking about like the data lifecycle, as a regulator, I'm always thinking about if you look at the beginning of the life cycle, you're establishing safety and efficacy, right? And so as you change your product or device over time, you still need to use that initial data, right, to look at the supplements that come on, and that you have to make sure that you're then sort of, maintaining that safety and efficacy. So it's particularly important to have that data, throughout the life cycle of drugs, because you're, establishing and continuing to verify that safety and efficacy.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your input. Cisco, anything you'd like to add?
So actually, no, I think you guys have already covered and hit on a lot of the points, right? I think people understand the construct and the concept, which is a great thing. And the ones who are looking for more information on it, there's more. It could be just, being driven from internal misunderstandings that they're looking to fill in gaps for. But I think at the very least, having that understanding of what it means, and I think, Stephen, you summarized it really well from that standpoint, that's the foundation. If you can think of things in that way, then all we're talking about is what are the technology pieces to help you enable better flow through that set.
Great. Thank you all. This is great input here and hopefully great information for the attendees. Really, the next thing we're gonna kick off now, and I can already see that we're not gonna finish because one question might take us the next 15 minutes, but it's okay. I gave heads up to Karen and Cisco and Ken to hopefully join us again, so hopefully we can continue on. But those are really important questions, and I think it's gonna take bunch of input from everyone here. So, and we've heard it from the FICSA team and from industry, from clients, etc. There is this, the misunderstanding, or when is data is created, right? When is original data? Is it at a keystroke? When committed to entry, hit enter. And again, we're talking technology now, right? Let's put data integrity and good documentation practices. Now, it's not when you used to write something, and if you made a mistake, you put a line through it, initial and date, right? Now, how do you do this here? When does it happen? Is it at the design of the system? Is it the requirement? What is it? So there's really those 3 questions that we've collected from various industry practitioners. Again, when is original data? Is data at the keystroke, when committed to entry, hit enter, at the end of a continuous session, and saving. So I'm going to start on my left here. I'm going to start with Ken, and whoever like to jump next, please jump in. So Ken.
Yeah, thanks. In the data integrity guidance, we say it becomes data at time when it's generated, right? And that doesn't mean that if it's not generated with the intent of satisfying a GMP requirement, that it's not GMP data. Some people are kind of wondering that, okay, if we don't intend it to be GMP data, then it isn't, but that's not true. Anyway, so yeah, I guess that's where I'd start off.
So I would say when a commit event takes place, that commit meaning when that data point has been recorded to durable media, a database, a hard drive, SharePoint, some way recorded.
Okay, so, this is great.
So to add on to that, right? I mean, there is this notion of trying to apply the paper paradigm to the computer system like blindly. So at the time of the keystroke, that's what I infer by the keystroke. Like every time I hit that key, that's me like writing a letter. Now think about that. If you apply that same concept, I can only do what I did in that prior paradigm. So I had horses, so therefore, horses don't fly. Well, airplanes should not fly. They should just stay on the ground with big jet engines, and they don't, right? So that thinking doesn't, increase patient safety, product quality, data integrity. To Stephen's point, it is at the point of commit. The level of commit, though, to Karen's point, is when that data is created. The business process, the underlying what the system does, determines how often that commit. It could be really, I need to capture it now, and it's boom and instant, and it's committed right then and there. Or it's a form, right, where you fill it out and you will put it in, and then when you hit that submit button, it goes in. For the keystroke people, if they're sitting there, then your audit trails are completely immutable, because like someone entered L, I, right? So it would just be unusable and actually be counterproductive for data integrity purposes, because who could review that audit trail, right? It would just be such a mess that you would not be able to get meaning from it. So it's always going to come back to the business process that determines where is that commit point, and thinking about that. And that opens up, I was looking just ahead at question 2, but right, that opens up things where we can actually use technology, where you can have like an edit check that's saying like, hey, by the way, that looks wrong. Before you hit commit, you may want to check that. What does that is better for data integrity, right? For product quality. We can use technology to make the system better, but we still just have to determine, again, that commit point in the context of the business process.
And it's an excellent point, Ken. If you have defined critical parameters within your business process, critical fields, you can design those fields to auto-save when you tab to the next field. So it doesn't even involve a user action. But to your point, then now that's part of your business requirement. You've identified the criticality of it.
Yep. And to the other thing, just to add on the final thought before I know Cisco's about to jump in, if we're saying it has to be at the keystroke level, then I don't have data integrity in my banking forms. I don't have data integrity in my HR form. I don't have the data integrity everywhere. But why are we sitting there for us, putting it in and not adopting things by putting these artificial hurdles. And then it's about applying the critical thinking and just going there versus a black and white rule. That's why it's so hard for a regulator to come up and give an opinion, because at any point in time, that business context, it's going to be different. And then someone takes it out of context, right? But we as industry, we have to basically define, this is what it means to us. This is what it means for this system, and be able and comfortable to defend it and explain it.
And I think, Ken, that's been the best summary to cover what the whole intent is, right? I think when we talk a lot about anything we do as a regulator, you know, we've got various companies, different sizes, different capabilities, different technology adaptations. The regulation itself needs to be flexible, right? It needs to maximize that flexibility, still give us that confidence that the right things are being done. What we want to make sure that we don't do, and what these questions tend to allude to, is exactly what you were talking about. It's an exact transcription of what is a paper activity to a technology without really considering why did we actually have that done when it was a paper activity, and what does that mean now, and what is the advantage, right, the technology enables. You know, in those days when you started writing it down and you scratched it out, that was, I mean, literally your record. It was coming right off the line and going from there. You know, when you transcribe that, that's great. If we talk about what an ideal state is, and you guys mentioned it beforehand, things are just coming off the systems, the manufacturing, the automation. There isn't a opportunity for that human error, right? Which is then an ideal situation. We want to maximize that as much as possible, but even just getting data to a usable state that it's not in paper is a huge improvement over what it currently is. Should there be an issue, not just from a regulator standpoint, but for the company standpoint, how quickly can you find it? How quickly can you assess it? What patterns can you derive from it? What can you do? That's not doable when it's in a paper format. So the idea, and what you see even the whole agency trying to shift to, and I think actually CDER's been leading some of this charge even beforehand with regards to accepting things through their systems and more a data drive. They want to maximize industry utilizing this information in a format that's usable, trendable. You know, you can run statistics on it, you can run data searches on it. Not happening if anybody's doing it in paper, but paper is very compliant, right? So we can't keep thinking about, you know, the exact translation when what we want to maximize from an agency standpoint is that future state, right? How do we get there? What is it that we're looking to do and drive? There are points in time, and I think, Stephen, you said it, and Karen might even mention, there are critical decisions that do need to be captured. We don't want to see somebody overriding that at the end, but it goes back to the idea of what is the defendable information flow that says, here's where all this was captured beforehand, so this critical decision point we can trust as we move forward.
And design your auto-save events at those points.
Right.
I guess you just answered number 3. Karen, I know that Cisco was trying to pull you back in. Did you see that? Did you notice that? He's trying to pull you.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that, you know, a lot of times people want the agency or a regulator to kind of like tell them what to do. And, you know, I think Cisco, you know, sort of alluded to this, that, you know, our job is to sort of help you understand the requirements or to remind you of the requirements. And if we get too prescriptive about, you know, how we describe that, then we can hinder innovation. And I think that, you know, we see ourselves as sort of the, you know, sort of the people who describe the rules, and we see you all as the people who find the solutions. So I think that, you know, we need to work hand in hand in that respect, and not be too prescriptive, and let you all think big and implement your big ideas.
Kevin, this is an off-script kind of question. So let's assume, that we decide as a community practice, right, come up with some recommendation to revise the guidance, the data integrity guidance, and just really focus on automation. Is that a welcome approach, a welcome initiative?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can actually go back to the docket comments that are associated with the Federal Register notice that publish that guidance, and you can submit a comment like that, and the agency will consider it. So it's all yours.
Okay.
Yes.
Cisco
We
and
welcome
Ken,
your comments.
Cisco and Ken, I think we have a new topic for our meeting on Friday, and hopefully Jason is on the call.
Before you even consider that route, though, I mean, I really do encourage people to go back and read through the guidance, because it's not, I think, the way people have been interpreting it to this degree, right? I'm looking at it and I see it, I'm like, well, I don't see them actually saying that in the guidance. How did it get to that point? If we're talking about the application and the solutions, right? I think the guidance has got a lot of flexibility within that space, and similar to what has happened here, and really how we've engaged with the whole idea of the FICSA, right? The engagement that the agency has been trying to have to be more collaborative and participate in like collaborative communities and engagements like these, right? Where the solutions and the actual way to get it done, it's in your hands, right? We just help keep the guardrails on along that process, and we don't even have to, if you guys are coming up with the best practices on your own and you guys want to go and do that, it's probably going to be faster than us editing or creating a guidance. But I think, you know, it's entirely up to you on how you want to pursue that.
It's really cultural.
Much like software validation, we did it to ourselves.
That is true. That is very true. And similar example to what Ken talked about with GAMP. You know, we and really, and I don't want to say unfortunately, but the industry one example. Give me the how to do it. Then, if that's the case, we need to kiss our job goodbye, because we need to have some critical thinking. Otherwise, we're going to automate everything, right? So we have to be careful here. We need to use our critical thinking hat sometime.
All right. I would argue that there's nothing wrong with everything being automated, and we focus only on the critical thinking of it, right? Let the automation handle all the work. That makes it, that puts our value and our capability where it needs to be, not in the minutia of things.
Totally.
So guys, can we just do a quick poll on number 2 here, just among the panelists? Keystroke is not a data integrity requirement.
I would personally agree. I was gonna say, I'm gonna go with, and I'll start here, and Karen will tell me if I'm wrong or off base, but I'll go with it depends. But the majority of the time, the way it's intended and defined, I don't think it makes sense to be that case. But there may be a situation, and that's part of the whole flexibility is to be allowed, where that needs to be something that is captured. Now, I don't know, Karen, if you think anything differently with that one.
Yeah, well, I would say my line is going to be that you need to maintain complete data. So whether that's keystroke or not, that's my my line.
Define the data that's critical to you.
Yeah, I'm with them, because if there's someone said I needed keystroke, I'd be curious as to why.
Right.
They'd have to explain it to me. What is the business purpose of that? Is it truly we must have it, or is this a misinterpretation? I know we didn't get to the other questions, and you're going to schedule another one, but I want to talk about ancillary tools being used, and because we've got things like people have the ability to do 100% verification, but they won't, because it's like, well, that kicks off a whole other validation effort. And so but that's not a predicated system, so why would you? It doesn't. You just need to test it to make sure that tool works. So there's a whole bunch of things, and instead what they do is they're like, well, we'll just do acceptance sampling, and we'll look at, and then they sometimes choose arbitrary numbers as opposed to a statistically based method, when they could use a tool to do 100% verification, but they won't because of misinterpretations. And this is where we get that. Yeah, so we need to talk about that. I know.
We should have that discussion at some point in time, because it alludes to other issues, right? It's the technology when it enables that 100% verification. Everybody assumes that because of validation, that's always what the agency wants. That's not necessarily always the case, right? If you can tell me 100% of the time and you know what's happening in that product, yeah, validation is for when you can't tell me that. So tell me how are you framing your confidence level around it.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
I don't know where that
So-
kind of flipped up.
This, I'm getting pinged here left and right from folks. We need another session with you guys. Can you commit to one now? Raise your hand if you can.
Sure.
We'll
Well, I
take
know
the
that
dates
we're
you
always-
like, not on a
As
Saturday
long
or
as
Sunday.
my office says I can commit, I'll commit.
I was gonna say, Khaled, it's always the whole submit, approve. We can do it. More than willing to do it is where I think I'd state it's timing, scheduling, and then getting through the.
Absolutely. Okay. I really thank you. I mean, definitely thanking Ken, of course, but thanking you both because I know how packed your schedule is, and I really appreciate you. I definitely think you added tons of value here, being here, and giving us, your insight. Ken, thank you so much. As always, you have great insight. I know you're the progressive guy, but I like it because this is where we need to go. Stephen, thank you again for your insight and your support. It's been great. I know we're going to have a bunch of questions. What I'm going to do, these questions, we're planning on posting these questions and answers on our FICSA LinkedIn page, right?
And I'm going to do a blog on these questions as well on complianceg.com.
Awesome, awesome. There's really a collaboration between the FICSA team, compliance group. By the way, coming to a theater near you, MDIC, Medical Device Innovation Consortium. We're going to have a lot of this information on there as well. So don't expect anything else from this team but information. We really need good information from solid resources like Karen, Cisco, and Ken. Don't trust me and Stephen. I'm just kidding. No, of course you should trust us because we are being trusted by these great folks. This is all I had. Chris, you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, just thank you very much, Karen and Cisco. We really appreciate your time today. Again, folks that were able to attend or didn't attend, we will send a copy of this recording to you with a link, as well as a link to the survey. So please give us feedback on how the content, the flow went today, and what other discussion topics you would like to hear from them in the future. So thank you very much for everyone's time today, and we'll see you again soon. And again, look for a link to the recording of today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Have a good
everybody.
day.